Diesel Nation. We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. Today, I'm going to be chatting with Cass from Show Engineering Performance, and one of our podcast fans had messaged us and said, hey, you should have Cass on and ask him about the move into their new shop. So they went into a 100,000 square foot building. Actually, I think it's a little bit bigger than that. And I'm going to ask Cass what it's been like moving into this new place, what it's going to allow them to do for products, for the engines that they build, and for their install shop. And we're going to chat a little bit about business and some things that he's realized as his company has grown in managing people and the processes that are in place to be able to deliver the most high quality product that they can. So it's going to be a fun conversation. Before we get to it though, I want to see all you guys on our Discord server. We've grown a lot over the last 2 weeks since we launched. It's really cool. There's some really amazing builds you guys are working on. So if you're looking for a way to be able to engage with us more and also other podcast fans, it's a great way to join. There's a link that's going to be down below. You just click on it and it's free to join. There's tons of different sections if you want to show off your Cummins, your Duramax, your Power Stroke. If there's technical information, there's polls that we run from time to time about, who should we have on the podcast? What questions should we ask? We love to hear that kind of feedback from you. So make sure you join. If you go to the Diesel Podcast on Instagram and you click the link in our bio, you're going to find our Discord, you're going to find our Patreon, our links to our YouTube channel, everything else. We wanted to make it as simple as possible so you don't have to click around a bunch of different places. You can just click once and you're right there. So I want to see you guys on there. Make sure that you join. All right, let's get to the podcast with Cass and asking about this new move into this big shop. Cass, welcome back to the Diesel Podcast. It's always fun to chat with you, catch up, see what you've been working on. And now with video, I could see some machines in the back and the new building that you're in. So should be a great time chatting with you today.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid that the poor listeners now are subjected to ugly mug. So I apologize about that in advance.
So what have you been up to the last month or so?
Golly, man, what have we not been up to? Feels like now if I look like a Baptist preacher over here swiping the sweat off my face, it's because it's hot out here in the shop, and everybody's gone home, and almost everybody's gone home, and it's Friday, and been a long week. We have moved from a tiny facility that we used to be in of about 7,500 square feet to 155,000 square foot facility. And it's on 9 acres, and to put it in perspective, I guess 4 acres are under roof. So it's a really, really big, it's a big shop. So what have we been up to the last 4 months? We have moved all the equipment, which was a big undertaking, but not as big as, I think moving the cores, man, that's one thing that you just don't, it's not like you're moving products like Walmart or something like that, where you're just grabbing stuff and putting it on a pallet. But when you're thinking about all the cores and different things like that you're actually, that you're having to move, that's a really huge undertaking. So we've been doing that quite a bit. So it's been busy.
That's probably one of the hardest parts, I imagine, is just logistically moving everything, getting it set up, going through, all the stuff that you're moving, and then maintaining, day-to-day business and everything else you guys have going on. I imagine that's a lot of work. There's some stress in there and long nights and everything.
Yeah. I come home and just to remind my wife, that I'm still married. I haven't left. I haven't ran off. I'm just long enough to get some coffee and sometimes eat breakfast, and then I'm gone again. So it's, and it's not just the part of the move that's been tough. And I think there's been so much growth. It's funny how there's different phases of my life and different things. Everybody can relate to this. I think, especially if you're self-employed, there's parts of you, with me, I've been reading, I'm an avid reader and been reading a book. Basically, it goes through the different hats that an entrepreneur wears, and one's a technician, one's the entrepreneur, and the other's the manager. And it's called E-Myth. And the things that we don't realize is in business, a lot of times people get into a business because the mechanic opens a mechanic shop and he thinks he should get in business because he's a good mechanic. He's been working for this idiot. He's tired of working for him. he figures I can fix that truck. I'm just going to cut him out and I'll open my own business. The baker gets tired of, working where they're at some bakery, and they decide, well, I can do this, and they open a bakery. The doctor opens his own practice, or whatever the case may be. And they think that because they can do the technical part of the job, that qualifies them to open a business, and nothing could be further from the truth. So as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, the things that I guess that I've been learning lately have not been engine related. They've not been mechanical. They've not been anything really, to be honest with you, in the automotive industry, but it transcends all things that are business related. So you start looking at processes. Okay. Everything has a process. So the hard part, before I go on through this long tangent about something, moving the equipment with stuff, learning how to, machine or program or whatever. That you figure once I learn that, I can teach it to somebody else. That's fine. Everything will go from there. But you've got to figure out some way to not have a hub and spoke organization. What I mean by that, a hub and spoke organization is where, how it goes, where you're in the center of your own world. You're the nucleus you're the business owner. Everything comes through you. On a wheel, if you take the hub out, everything falls apart. You can take a few spokes out, but the problem with it is everything has to pass through you. And try to figure out now, we went from 7,500 square feet to 155,000 square feet, from 18 employees to 34, 35 employees, and trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to make this thing function as it should, as a process? It's, and throughout this book, I'm reading this, and this has been my analogy that I've kind of came up with. There's two different methodologies that I've kind of learned. One is a method of, in an airplane, we have, if you didn't have an autopilot, you could trim this thing to where it would fly straight and level for the most part through trim tabs. It's kind of like, for those that don't know, it's kind of like power steering on the car, but let's say your car pulled to the right a little bit. You could trim it to where it would actually drive straight. Okay. Well, it's got aileron trim tabs. It's got rudder trim tabs. It's got horizontal, the elevator trim tabs, or whatever it takes to make the airplane fly straight and true. But this is my own concoction, my own analogy. So you can fault me for it. But in the method of a person methodology of a business, how it operates, how it works, is if the airplane is the business owner is the captain, the pilot, and all the employees are the passengers. You can trim the airplane out to fly straight and level, so long as everybody will just sit down and stay put. But there's two things that I know about people from being in business. One is they're undependable, and two is they're unpredictable. Typically, anybody that's been in business can pretty much tell you that, especially meeting with the struggles that we've had lately with, this unemployment issue that the country is going through, which has made it tremendously hard as a business owner. But as long as everything is kind of squared away, everybody's sitting and playing nice and not moving around, the airplane flies straight and true. But when somebody gets up, moves around, about the time you get this airplane, it's flying, your hands off, you're over there reading a magazine, it's holding the heading, and everything's working great. You're thinking, great, I got it. We got this thing figured out this way. Some joker in the back decides to get up and go to the bathroom or to move around. Now the center of gravity that you trim the airplane out to fly straight and level is no longer straight and level. And now you're fighting white knuckled again, trying to get this thing under control. And you really can't, because you're having to trim for the loss of a person in their seat. That's the first method. Now that method is, I really need to get somebody that knows, a really good parts guy that knows his parts. He knows exactly what you need. And he's been in this business for 30 years. So you go out and you find this guy, and you, instead of building a process for him, you build your whole system around a person. Well, what happens is that guy winds up, he's in a car wreck on the way to work, and he broke his leg. Now he's not going to be in work for 3 months. Now your whole airplane is just flying through the air every which way, and you're trying to get this thing under control again. The second method is an autopilot, because it works off of an attitude indicator, and it works off of servos, and it works off of gyroscope, and it works off of a system approach. So it doesn't matter who gets up and leaves or who goes to the bathroom, whatever happens, the thing will still fly straight and true. That's what I've been learning. about a process approach instead of a people approach. And I think that that's really and truthfully the only way that you really are. It's like the guy in the book said. He said, what happens is people have he calls it this. He said they're entrepreneurs, they're technicians suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure. And he said what they do is they don't get a business to own a business. Now they go to work for the most insane person in the whole universe, and that's themselves. And I think that that's so true. When I heard that, I was like, man, that's exactly what's going on. Because here you are, late at night, staying and working to your, to no end. But those are the things that I've been working on, and trying to get a better grasp of that and understanding that.
Well, I had a listener recently that had asked about road mapping, like his first year in business, what he was going to do, and I went through with a guest some different things, and immediately, after that, I thought, if you have the drive, you have the skill, and you plan it out, you're probably going to make it through that first year. It might not be easy. There might be struggles, but what you just talked about is the next major thing that is so hard for any industry, not even just automotive, is you think, on one hand, you have the emotion because you made the sacrifices, you put in the long hours, you did the financial things, and now you have to either have your hands in everything. Like I imagine now, probably a lot of it is you have 34, 35 employees, and a lot of people would probably come up and ask you questions, and you're pulled in all these different directions. That's hard. And then two is, okay, how do you mentally get to the point that you say, I'm going to trust this system to handle what I've invested so much in? And it's almost like phase two of what that gentleman had asked us is, okay, once you're going, how are you going to have your business run? I've seen some where they're run like the hub you mentioned, and it's a person. It's usually the owner. And they just get so bombarded, they can't think 4 steps ahead. They can't plan the new thing because they're dealing with something small, like somebody called in sick, or why aren't the boxes in, or why isn't this thing running, when they should be thinking about something massively bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the worst. Okay. If you were going to pick a year to be the most difficult year in business, I mean, I don't know. Flip a coin, because it's either 2020 or it's 2021. Because either you're suffering from, the whole place is shutting down, but they're giving you money to stay at home, and then of course, that was the very beginning of things, or, we're opening things back up, but I mean, it's like ARP, they're shut down. I mean, they've been shut down. So there's a huge shortage on things like that. I mean, what doesn't have a shortage on it right now? And then on top of that, what about people? I mean, trying to get somebody to come into work when they're making a lot of money to sit at home. And it's, man, you talk about a difficult time to try to start a business or to expand a business. Not so much start a business, because the starting of a business, that's your, I remember hearing somebody say, when it's just you and you're doing everything, that's some of the best years you'll spend, and the best times you'll spend in business, because it's like your child, you're growing this thing, right? And I think that that's true. I don't think it has to be true. I think for some folks it is. But trying to grow something and scale and know when to grow it and know how to grow it, there's a whole nother. So here's the statistics. The first year of there's 30.2 million small businesses in the United States today. In the first year, 20% of those will fail. In the first 5 years, 30% of those fail. And the next 10 years, over the course of the next 10 years, 70% of those businesses will actually fail. So what is it that causes these people to fail? Is it the economy? Is it lack of working capital? Is it, who got elected? Whatever that, fill in the blank. And I really think that a lot of that is true. And I do subscribe to the teaching of, a lot of it is people run out of gas. They just do not know how to face themselves in business. And they get so burnt out, because at the end of the day, your business should supply for your life, not your life for your business. And man, how many business owners have I seen? And not personally, I know this better than most. I mean, I will work 18 hours a day, trying to make sure that you're taking care of everybody. But you got to look back and say, if this thing's ever going to get any bigger, if it's ever going to get any better, I can't do it all, and I've got to start thinking about this thing as a system instead of as a person, one person doing it all, or just finding the very very best guy that I can put in that position and hope all my problems go away, because they won't. So that's the tough part. People like new products, they like putting out new stuff, and they work really hard on that.
Yeah.
And I've been guilty of that. But then you have to back up and you got to go, okay, I got here because of great customer service. Because people, when they called, they talked to me, and I was able to, take care of them and everything. And now as you're expanding, generally that's kind of the thing you'll start to see. And then the customer service starts to wane. People start to get, frustrated, because here they are trying to build this product that might be the thing that they're interested in, but the thing that got them there, they're neglecting. And that's not the fun part to work on. But it's the needful part of work.
Yeah, I think we're going to see, you had mentioned the failure rates at different points, and you can, if you step back for a second, you can almost predict what, the failure point's going to be the first year, what it's going to be at year 5. At year 10, it's the organization, it's the planning. And I think with the almost perfect storm of 2020 and then 2021, it's not any better this year. It's just different than it was last year. And especially in automotive, I see a lot of business owners, shop owners, people in lots of industries say it's tough to find people right now. And I think there's going to be that major crunch of, okay, I need to put my system together. Well, where do I find the help? Which I think is hard in any year, any time period, but especially now is how do I do this? And I don't want to see a business go out of business, but I think there's going to definitely be some challenges. And that's why I've really enjoyed covering these topics and these kind of conversations, is I know there's a lot of, people that listen that either work in automotive, or they own automotive, or they have construction companies, or they have other things where, they're finding the same stuff that, you just mentioned. And it's crucial to be able to offer some insights to, I'd say like tips or things that you guys are going through out there, so they can sit back and go, hey, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should stop for a second, think, what am I doing with my marketing, my organization, the people. And I, sometimes I struggle with the letting go part, which, and I don't know if that's the hardest struggle for a lot of entrepreneurs, but it's like stepping back and trusting somebody, and then
mother hen syndrome.
Yeah, it's hard. It's one of the hardest things.
It is. It definitely is, because it's your baby. I mean, really and truthfully, people can say what they want to, but when you start a business, it's like, it's like having a child. I mean, it's part of you. I mean, it's what you work for. It's what you thought about. It's why you do what you do. The things that I'm learning, and not that I know them, and I'm definitely. You have to become a student. If you're going to be self-employed, it is not a one and done thing, especially if it's going to grow to any size. You've got to constantly become a student. And again, I'm going back to school, not in the sense of going to a college or anything like that, but every day I'm learning more and more about these systems. One of the big issues I see is, man, we need some help in here. We have got to get somebody in here that can help us. They get somebody in there that can help them, but they haven't defined the job well enough for the person to actually do what they're supposed to be doing. And then they get frustrated because the guy's not performing like you want him to perform, but he doesn't know what you want out of this thing. So before I open a position, I need to have a process. Before I look for a person, there needs a process, and it needs to say, okay, these are the things that I'm actually needing to get accomplished. This is the way, this is how we do it. And somebody, I know you've probably seen the movie The Founder, for McDonald's, Ray Kroc, right? But it has to be a turnkey. It has to be a turnkey system. When you sell a franchise, people buy that franchise because it works. It is a selling machine. McDonald's is, it's a machine. You're buying a machine, you put it on a corner lot, a real estate, and you turn the switch on, and it makes money. Well, why does it do that? It's because somebody knows exactly, whether it is a soft process to welcome to McDonald's, man, take your order, and this is how we're going to say it, to how we're going to, ring up the cash register, or how we're going to make sure that our drawers are, or how we're going to sweep the floors, or what we're going to wear, or what's going to be on the menu, or there are so many different things in that, and that's extremely hard to do. But the better I get at it, the more I realize the value in it, not just for myself, but most importantly for the customer. And everybody that calls, most of the time when you build a small business, your name, people know the guy that started the company.
Yeah.
And they want to talk to the guy that started the company. And you want to talk to each and every one of them. It gets really difficult because people don't realize, and I understand on the flip side of the coin, they don't realize how many emails and how many phone calls and how many Facebook messages, and how many Instagram messages, and how many LinkedIn messages or things that you get or whatever. I mean, there's just so many different ways to contact a person nowadays, and it makes it really, really hard to juggle all that. And you go, man, I want to have a great product, but I want to have killer customer service. I want to really have a good, spot on organization that works that gets there for the right reason. And I'm realizing that I need to work on and we're working on this. And I know some folks go, 3S'ing and 5S'ing, lean manufacturing, and how you see waste and how you look at these things, and the amount of steps that you take, and trying to not just lean how we make an engine or how we perform an operation here, but think about it in terms of how we literally, from everything from how we can add value to the customer, from the point of the first phone call or the initial contact to the follow-up after they've got their engine installed. So it's definitely, it's a lot larger process than what I ever dreamed of, because we're making processes for how to sweep the floor. And here's another thought. Okay, this is really good. Okay, so we have a meeting every morning, all 30-something employees, and we got a guy in the shipping department. His name's Doug. Doug's humorous sort, so he writes up. So everybody's got to write standard operating procedure for what they do. That whatever is in their department. Well, Doug writes a standard operating procedure. And his operating procedure is it's broken down basically how to load an engine on a truck, 30 steps on how to load this thing, from checking it off on the sheet to putting the pallet. So it's like step 24 and 26 are place pallet jack under pallet and pump 18 times. Of course, we're all laughing because it's ridiculous, And then 26 is load engine on the truck and say prayer. Honestly, with the shipping companies nowadays, you feel like that, right? But we were all rolling laughing at this thing because it was hilarious the way he wrote it up. But one thing that I realized is this: there's a little nugget of truth in this. Pump 18 times, okay? Here's where you have to figure out. There's 3 things that I read on this. I thought, man, this is really good. So you innovate. So innovation, quantification, and orchestration. Innovation is how we do it. Okay. But one of the biggest things that are missed on the standard operating procedures or the things that they do. So this guy said pump 18 times. They're laughing about it. And I said, you know what that boils down to though? If you think about it, if you pump 19 times, it tells me my pallet jack, the cylinder's getting weak in it. I'm just saying, okay, don't strain into that. Just think, I understand people go, well, that's silly. But what I'm saying is this: if you can quantify everything you do, why'd you miss that sale? What was the reason for, and question everything. Literally, why is this on the shelf? Why is this there? And you start asking more and more questions, then things start to open up. And when you can quantify something, like our engines, okay? Perfect example, because it is a system. If you tell me how much fuel that you're burning, and you tell me how much mass airflow is being taken into the intake, I can tell you what your volumetric efficiency is. I can tell you what the health of your engine is because of its output. If I can measure its output, you give me the right PIDs or the parameter identification, I can quantify this. I can give you the rest of the story. Why, if it works for engines, why wouldn't it work for a business? And that data is so important. Why do your listeners, and you're in that game, why do your listeners listen to you? You want to know analytics. How long do they listen? What's the demographic? What's the psychographic? What's the geographic? So you're looking at these different things. So if it works there, then it works over here really well too. You just got to figure out, and don't cast it out and don't think little of it. These are really important. I need to know the numbers, you know. So that's a tip that I guess if I was starting a small business, people go, well, how would that pertain to me? If I was diagnosing a truck, you do the same thing. If you're on Identifix or you're on Chilton or one of the different, you know, they have a basically how many times in case you have this symptom, what's the most likely thing to check next? It's a database. So people should use everything that they're getting, you know, everything that they get. If they can record anything that they think may be pertinent to the job that they do. Sometimes I fix trucks and I forgot because it'll be 2 years later. And it was a weird, wacky problem if I found this harness that was chafed in this area. If I'd write it down and I go, okay, I'm gonna make a mental note when this was my symptom, this was my cure. So that helps me, you know, in future days to be able to look back on that.
Yeah, I think that as you had mentioned, the procedures and the different things that are there, it was reminding me of jobs I've, you know, had in the past where sometimes I was put in that seat and there was no direction and I just had to figure it out. And, you know, it's stressful, you know, when you just start something and, you know, it's like the phone's on, you know, good luck. Then other ones I've had where it's extremely detailed and there's all these processes for it. And I think especially for somebody who is younger, you know, maybe just out of school, something like that, and they're wanting to get into this. They have a passion for fixing things or selling things or whatever it might be that pertains to automotive. And I think retention and also setting them up to be successful is you know, you have a ton of employees and there's probably some that are they're really ambitious. They want to grow, they want to learn new things, and you have to roadmap that as an entrepreneur, as the, you know, the head of the business, and being able to outline, you know, what they do and what the benchmarks are is incredibly important to be able to achieve that. And you know, I also think too, you know, stepping back with when you're talking about, you know, what happens if you go to 19? Well, what happens if you go to 17? Like that particular employee, that's experience. He knows what happens at 17. He knows what happens at 19, and that's extremely valuable. And being able to pass that on. You know, I think of one job I had, and one of the shipping guys was out, and he was like the central hub. Well, when he was out, the whole entire organization fell because nobody knew how to do what he did. And that snowballs into the front office and into the phones and then into production. And exactly. It's so incredibly important to do that. And I think that really hits at the point, you know, what we've talked about so far is year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down, as we all want to see diesel companies, automotive companies successful. That gives us the content. The truck owners gives them the confidence to do things. It goes all the way around. So, yeah, I think that's important. And also, one of the lessons I learned, I read it somewhere, it was to always listen to your customers, especially when they have a negative experience. And, you know, I think back to like the podcast, and I'm not selling them something, but, you know, I think back to the early ones and they would make a critique or they would say something, and it's just not taking it personal. It's thinking, well, am I just talking about things that I think are cool? What if people don't want to hear this? They want to hear about this towing setup, or I was too far away from the mic, or I was too close, or these things. And just being humble as you approach this situation, people will tell you what's going wrong. And that's the most valuable experience and feedback you can get.
Yeah, that is true. It's painful. And, you know, if you want to grow, you know, I think of the pearl, you know, how the oyster develops pearl through the irritation of the sand or the grit. And that's really, sometimes correction or criticism is a form of it's abrasive. And, you know, people don't really think of that and say, hey, this can make me better. You know, they just want to be better. Well, don't we all? I'd love to be this perfect, but it ain't gonna happen. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Listening here often is what's most needed.
And to kind of switch gears just a little bit is, on the engine side and what you guys are doing, how much or what has changed with the demand into 2021 or into things people are asking for versus 2019, 18? Is it vastly different, or is it just there's more people calling and saying, hey, I can't go get a new Power Stroke because they're sitting in a field waiting for a computer, so I'm going to invest in my 2015 or my
Yeah.
2010 or whatever it might be?
Yeah. We have had more people ship trucks. Last week alone, I went to the airport 3 times.
Wow.
Pick up. Yeah. One guy was from California. One guy, and it was a 7.3 that he fixed up and did a lot of performance upgrades. One guy was from Michigan, and one guy was from Las Vegas. So yeah, we're seeing people, and we're a full service shop here as well, and we have a lot of people now that are shipping trucks to us to have us do installs and stuff. Yeah, I mean, trucks are insanely expensive. Used trucks are insanely expensive. There's no trucks on the lot. Man, what I went by the Chevrolet dealership, the local Ford dealership in town, and there's not one single Super Duty, brand new Super Duty on the lot.
I had a
Not
friend.
one.
I had a friend tell me that. He goes, "Man, I was looking for a new Duramax, and they don't have any." And I go, "No, they have to have new Duramaxes." My whole life they're always packed, and they're always out front, and because they're expensive, they're nice, and
Yep.
so I went and I drove around to a couple of them. I'm like, there aren't any new ones here. What's going on?
No, no, and I don't think that's going to. Honestly, I don't think that's going to. It's going to take 2 years before this thing actually levels out, and
Yeah.
maybe not even. I don't know. I'll tell you this though. My friend and shop foreman, we were talking about this earlier, and he said, "Man, what do you think is going to happen?" I said, "I'll tell you what it's going to do. The reason why Jasper Engines is in business, you know why they got started?
No.
Okay. Jasper started because they actually started coming right out of, in World War II. There were Ford and all these other manufacturers. Oh, by the way, do you know who the largest, I want to say, I think it was, maybe I'm right. I think I'm right. Yeah, the largest manufacturer of well, it was some form of machine gun of some sort. I don't remember which one, what model it was, but at any rate, they were the largest form or manufacturer of machine guns in World War II. You know who the largest manufacturer was?
I don't, but what's really cool about, and that's a time period that I just nerd out on and read all I can, is how industry totally changed and how GM and Ford and all these places started building tanks and planes and guns. And I mean, like, I think Singer, who made sewing machines, they made 1911s, and just how they all got on board with it and just changed over what they were making.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Frigidaire was the largest manufacturer. Who'd have thought it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so going with that, the reason why Jasper got into the business is because Ford was busy making airplanes and making other parts for the war. So they didn't have anybody to rebuild or remanufacture engines. So because of that, Jasper got into the business. So it's sort of like that now, if you think about it, because not necessarily, obviously, we're not on the war that's causing the demand, but because things have shut down so much. I think that there's going to be a lot of vendors, a lot of manufacturers that are going to find themselves now, especially those in California state, or Washington, that when they do open back up, they're going to find out there's a new game in town.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to really, there's going to be a lot more competition there for the companies that could make it through. The companies that can't make it through are going to be ones that first off don't know how to. Well, if you start taking in a lot of orders, you're not keeping up with your cost of your bill of materials. That's going to be bad because the way that the stuff's changing right now, oh man, it's insane. Everybody talks about lumber, steel, but all your pricing on all your parts for your transportation, anything that's got, if it's transported to your shop, it's going up. So I think a lot of the companies aren't staying on top of that. They get busy, doing it, as the guy says, just working, and not paying attention to what they're working themselves, and in some cases they're losing money by taking an order and they're not paying attention to it. So you're going to have to really stay on top of that. And they think they're, because they're really busy, that they're making money. And it reminds me of the guy that that was buying fish on one side of the bank for $1, and he was going to the other side of the bank selling the same fish for $1. And they did this 3 or 4 times, and his partner looked at him and said, "Man, if we only had a bigger boat, we could make a lot more money." And people think like that.
Yeah.
It's not the way it works. So you need to be really careful about staying on top of those things. I think that's really one thing that needs to be important for shop owners alike. Before you bid that job, make sure that it's only good for 30 days or whatever your vendor is going to guarantee it for. And before you quote it, because you've done that job so many times, you're instantly going to rattle it off. Say, "Oh yeah, that'll cost you $29.95."
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't anymore. So that's something.
That's a really good insight as well in this topic of automotive is that demand is going to go somewhere. I'm sure you see it on cores. I'm sure they're tough to get, and they're almost like gold when you need them. And some of the components and things that may go bad in one. Well, can you machine it? Can you make it? Can you create that? And then we hear lumber's the big one, but I know there's copper and just tons of other things are changing all the time. What are your costs? And I think that goes back to your system is you have to have somebody in that position to say, "Hey, this is how our costs are changing, but we're selling it at this. We can't do this." And it's another person in that system to keep you going on the right direction.
Yeah, for manufacturing, especially, like I've got Parks land beside of me. I won't mention who they're for, but they're for a company in the diesel industry that they're right now. They just can't keep up with the demand, and they're asking for us to do machining on some of the stuff. Everybody's hurting. my uncle's rebuilding this. We did an engine for him on this Roadrunner. It was like a 383. We stroked a 496, and he's putting his Roadrunner in. And he, I drug my feet on getting him taken care of, unfortunately, because when you're family, it's the worst place you can go. Because how that goes. My stuff stays broke anyway. But he finally gets it back together. Right, he's got the motor. He's ready to put it in. He has problems trying to get a torque converter because nobody has a torque converter. Everybody's 6 weeks out. And then when they do, this is what's really bad. But instead of telling them the truth that they don't have the converter in stock, they lead them on and lead them on and lead them on. But he calls me and he said, "There's this fuel system business that," he said, "if you know anybody over there, can you make a phone call and see if you can get that expedited?" I was like, "You just better hang in for the ride, because I'm going to tell you, you're in the boat with everybody else. Just get in the line and wait your turn, because it's not going to go fast. Everybody's overloaded. Everybody's exhausted. And I don't know if you noticed this or not, but it seems like people are more irritable lately. I don't know why.
Oh yeah. I noticed it just driving around and seeing how people act now versus, a year or so ago. It's just totally different. Or going into a store or something like that. It's just the fuses are a lot shorter for people. And I'm standing there like, you're making a scene here at the gas station to check out. Like, is this really worth it? Like, I mean, but I think we're just also accustomed to, I want something, I have the money for it, I'm going to get it, in 1 to 3 days. And then now all of a sudden, I mean, there's things I order that I've been waiting for 6 months for, and I just got to wait my time because there's thousands of other people that want the same thing. And
I ordered something the other day. I was like, "What's this? What did I order this for? I forgot now." Oh yeah. I sold that thing anyways.
Stuff just shows up, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't remember ordering that."
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It's and I think it's going to be interesting when this money runs out for the government, for at least for our state. I think it's July 1st or the end of June or something. I'm not sure. I'm starting to get more applications for people, so I can definitely tell it's getting close. And I think that it kind of, I don't know. I don't want to be. I'm a lot more abrasive in things, and people know me. I mean, I believe what I believe. That's what I'm not going to apologize for it. But at some point in time, it kind of makes you at the point where you go, you've been sitting around your parents' house for a year, and you want a job. Do I really want you? I mean, if you've done nothing for a year, and you could just sit around. What's going to keep you here? Somebody said something to this. Why do you want to come work for me? I know your company, and I've seen what y'all do, and I'm really impressed with all that. And I'm not. I said, okay, so why are you quitting your old job? I'm just not happy. And I think if I come here and I come on, I'll be happy. I said, whoa, back up. This isn't going to make you happy. Heck, half the time I'm working here, I'm aggravated. I'm not even happy. Okay. So if you're thinking that your job is going to make you happy, then you're deceiving yourself. There are things about my job that I enjoy. Yes, I do. But happiness needs to, you need to get your happiness from, first off, for me, it's the Lord and then my family. And that's where my happiness comes from. Now, I want to be able to supply for my family and take care of them, take care of a customer, put out a quality product. I enjoy those things. But more times than not, there's going to be frustrating days when you're like, the machine crashed, the amplifier board went down. I'm just thinking about stuff off the top of my head. The amp board was overheating, and it's just frustrating. That's not where you go, ooh, I'm so happy to be here. It doesn't work that way. Hey, you're deceiving yourself. You're crazy, but whatever, So, but people there's a very little happiness in a lot of the public today. So,
well, it's definitely a crazy time, and especially, in my experience, I'm more so covering things. I'm not hiring people per se, or machining something, but it's just so many variables that are at play, and it's an industry I love. It's a platform I love. I love diesel engines. I love trucks. And I just think, okay, well, how do we get through this? Because I think what's going on is much larger than automotive, but it's a global supply chain thing. It's people. It's just opening, closing in different parts of the country. Some are completely open, some aren't, and then you're trying to grow a business and trying to get truck parts. You're trying to build your truck. You're trying to repair it, and we're dealing with all these things for my whole life. I don't remember any rationing. I don't remember any really extended lead times on things. I never experienced that in my life so far. And I'm like, what's going to happen with it? How's it going to change things? And I think the employment side, as I mentioned before, it's something that I think it's a major issue. I think it always has been. I've always heard shop owners say, hey, it's really tough to find good people. Well, what about now? What's going to be like at this time? And how do you do it?
Well, and the flip side of the coin too is people think that the issue is that we can't get anything because necessarily the states are shut down, and that's very true. But it goes even deeper. It's not that you can't get parts that the United States doesn't manufacture. It's that we don't even make the raw material to be able to manufacture it in the first place. You're still dependent on India, and you're still dependent on China, and they've got hit harder than anybody right now. So you are hooked to their wagon, and until things get straightened out over there, you're going to have a mess in your hands because we don't have any foundries. The United States is in a bad situation. They're really, really in a bad position right now without having any ability to create raw product to machine the part. And you're dependent on China. What are you going to do? People go, well, it's made in America. Yeah, but steel came from China. So it's a mess. And, not to get into politics or anything else like that, but definitely you can't turn a blind eye that long and think that you're going to get away with no recourse. And we're finding ourselves paying the price now, and it's just beginning.
Yeah, definitely think you're right, and with like we talked about older trucks. I remember when this first happened last year, March or April, and I've had some other guests on where they're like, I didn't know what was going to happen with my business. I didn't know, were we going to, keep trucking along as usual or weren't we? And then they said, well, I'm busier than I've ever been. I'm up 50%. I'm up 100%. I'm up 300%. And I think also gauging for that as well. What about when the OEMs do kind of catch up? What about when you can get a new truck? What about when the lots do fill up? How is that going to change what people are calling and asking for?
Yeah. Well, inflation is just absolutely nuts. But I definitely, for the time being, it certainly helped the used business. Anybody that's involved in the used auto business or anything for that matter right now. I don't know. I haven't checked on the availability of a new washing machine, but I'm sure that they're, I think, what was it? What is it in the control board that they're, it's not a, what is it? It's a, let's see, what component is it that they're missing in the, to be able to manufacture? And it's a material, it's a raw material.
Yeah, I can't think of it, but I know for whatever I saw with the Super Duties, they were waiting on something to be able to finish the ECM, and I think GM on their half tons had some component, some fuel saver thing they couldn't get, so they just got rid of that on these models, and they get a little less fuel economy, but they can sell the trucks. And yeah, it's some raw material that's just backed up, and
it's just a shame they couldn't, wish they just get, some things are certain parts that I won't mention. It's a shame that they could just be like, you know what, this year we couldn't get it. We're going to send it,
Yeah.
Like that year's just kind of scot free and everybody just turns a blind eye to that. The price of those would go through the roof.
Yeah, just buy it, park it, and sell it in 20 years.
Yeah, the whole market would change then. 2022 would be the thing to have. Everything's compliant. Whatever.
You'd posted up some Ford valve covers, and those things, whenever I see them, or I think we posted one up not long ago, people go so crazy for them and they love them. I wanted to ask you about those.
Hold on.
Okay.
So the machine behind me is a UMC 1000. It's a 5-axis machine, and it's what we make these on. Now, the thing that's kind of cool about these, I'll hold that up, power stroke valve cover. And a billet valve cover is, it's pretty, but it's really not that functional, right? But ours are. And I wish that I had, okay, so here's what we did on this valve cover. So on the inside of the valve cover, we had a big issue with the 6.4s not oiling properly. On the inside here, this is all threaded, okay? So there's actually a piston spray nozzle that goes in here. So basically what we did is we machined this long galley through the valve cover, and made it like a 7.3 head would be, okay? And then instead of using what we used to use, like a rail here that we would kind of like the 6.7 has on it, right? So we kind of took the 6.7 and we took the 7.3, we made it into a valve cover. And this is actually fed after the oil cooler. So it's filtered oil, and then it sprays through, and it's directed. These are, I don't know if you can see it or not, but these are angled right here. And they're canted so that they spray directly down to the rocker arms. So that, and I'll tell you this, that actually has caused a huge difference. Okay, if you've ever been around a Spintron, for the guys that don't know what a Spintron is, a Spintron is basically an electric motor, kind of like a dyno, that most of your camshaft manufacturers are going to have that are higher quality camshafts. What they do is they take the crankshaft out, they install this big long mandrel inside of it, and they have got sensors that are looking up at the valve train, and there are no guts to it. There's no pistons, there's no rods, there's no internal components. They drive the camshaft from this mandrel, okay? And then they window the block and they put sensors in and strain gauges and different things so that they can measure and quantify, again, those valve train components to see how much deflection, to see at different RPMs what's actually happening, what kind of lift they're actually getting at certain RPMs, all these other things. Well, they spin that thing up to whatever operating max RPM that they're going to use, right? And then they take all the data from it. First time I was ever around one, I thought, is that a dyno? That's the weirdest dyno I've ever seen, right? And then I realized, the guy goes, no, this is a Spintron. This is what it does. So I didn't know, because if you didn't know any better, you would think that engine's running. There's nothing inside of it, but it sounds just like a running engine. It is so loud. And I always thought, the combustion events that were taking place is where all the noise is coming from. No. Most of your noise is coming from your valve train. anyway, I say all that to say that our valve covers at idle, they remove about 10 decibels. Just at idle, they're about 10 decibels less than a stock truck. It's amazing how much quieter. Honestly, you can't hardly hear the engine. It's quieter. I'll tell you this: my 6.4, the 6.4 with a set of these valve covers is quieter than my brand new 6.7.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. I pulled in the shop the other day, and our shop. I mean, you can do a burnout in the shop. It's pretty nice now that it's so big. It's pretty cool. So we got the machine shop side, and you can drive through the machine shop side and do like a lap and come, go out. But I was able to sneak up on the guys in that truck, and I wasn't trying to. I wasn't thinking about it. But you can drive through the shop, and I was able to drive in, and they never heard me coming from out on the street. It's that much quieter. And I know people go, oh, right, whatever. I made a video. Gosh, I posted it on one of the 6.4 pages. I need to post it on our Facebook page, but I did make a video of it. And I had a lot of comments on it, and it's pretty crazy how much difference that is. But that just goes to show you the lack of oil supply that there is on the valve train. It also helps because, even your valve springs, everything, the harmonics, it reduces the harmonics that are in that. There's a lot of noise that's being passed through, and that really does make a huge difference. But it's not for the noise. It's not to make it pretty, but it just makes the parts, the rocker arms that are so used to wearing out, makes them last, and actually makes a 6.4 rocker assembly durable, which is almost impossible to believe.
Well, that was one of the reasons I wanted to ask you about it, because people see it, they see whether it's polished or it's blue or different colors, and they think, oh wow, it's going to make my engine bay, really pop. I really like it, and that's cool. But there's so much functionality that's behind it that really benefits someone if they have that engine. It solves a problem. It's not just it looks cool or
because you can't see anything under 6.4 hood anyway, right? It's junk on there. If you want to do that by a 7.3, you can actually see the valve cover on it. But you won't see it on 6.4, so it has to be functional. Like Chrysler used to say, fashion by function.
Yep.
And I like that. That sounds good. So.
Yeah, well, it's this was a really good podcast, and I know that the things that you talked about are really going to resonate with a lot of the listeners out there in their own businesses, their own jobs even. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to hear the lessons and then think about yourself and the organization or the business that you're in and say, can we improve things? Can we have a system? Can we have these operating procedures to make our jobs better? So I know that listener who asked about, planning step 1, he's eventually going to listen and want to know about step 2, 3, and 4. So that's some great insights that you had.
Yeah, it's definitely step 3 and 4 and 5, but way you need to go into it. Honestly, I think this is the best information that the best information or the best tip that I've ever been given as far as this goes. Amongst, I don't know if it's the best, but it's pretty darn good. Treat your business whenever you go into it like you're going to franchise it. Because if you look at me, I got a flower running around like Mike Pence. But anyways, treat your business as though you're going to franchise it. Because if you do, it's going to force you to make processes for everything you do. Because again, when you're franchising, they're buying a turnkey business and they're looking for a machine that works. So if we're going to put these processes in place, because some folks are going to say, I'm never going to, franchise that. It wouldn't work that way. But if you treat it as though you are, then you can go to work. And he says this in the book, but you go to work on your business instead of in your business, instead of doing the same things every day. I've got to fix that truck. I've got to do this. If and he said, Ray Kroc, I thought this was interesting. He said, the first McDonald's that he opened was in Des Moines, but he didn't go to work at that franchise in Des Moines. What he did was he wound up going to work down the street in an office to work on the business of McDonald's instead of in the business of McDonald's making the hamburgers. And it's so easy as a business owner to get caught up in the day in, day out. I've got to get this engine built. I've got to get this truck fixed. I've got to get these parts shipped out. I've got to get, talk to this customer, this, that, and the other. And somebody has to do that. But if you'll build a process that works, then it'll give you better time now to work, and it'll give you at the end, it'll add more value to the customer's experience.
That's great advice.
I wish I could say it was my own. It's not.
Well, I think hearing it and applying it and being a student, like you said, is what's incredibly important. And just being humble and understanding we don't know everything, and we're not, we have to just be receptive to the advice and the things that people learn through their own experiences. So yeah, I'm sure this will be some great lessons for people, and it's always fun to chat with you. Congratulations on the new shop. I know there's gonna be a lot of cool things you guys are churning out of there, and a lot of hard work ahead, but it's always great to see what you guys are working on for Power Strokes, Cummins, Duramax trucks, and pushing the envelope for it. So it's awesome to see
we need to get you something behind your shelf there.
Yeah.
Maybe a valve cover or something on it, so.
Yeah, I got set that up, and I'm like, man, what am I going to fill this with? And there's some space still. I didn't use it all, but yeah, no, that would be fantastic. So
a little billet block or something.
Yeah. I appreciate your time today, Cass.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure to head on over to the Diesel Podcast Discord server. There's a link down below that you'll find to just click it. It's free to join. Tons of different sections. I want to see your guys' truck, see what you're working on. And the questions that you guys are asking on there it's really cool to see what you guys are wanting to know with suspension, lighting, parts, turbo kits, fueling. And we have a bunch of really engaged members over there where they're answering a lot of questions before I can even get to them. So it's really cool. We also wanted to give a shout out to one of our Patreon supporters, Right Diesel Services. And if you're looking for a way to be able to support the podcast and be even more engaged, if you want your truck or podcast cover, if you want to be a co-director for an episode, there's a lot of perks that you get. You'll find the link down below as well in the description. Or if you go to Instagram to search the Diesel Podcast, click over to our bio. It's right there. It's cheap. It's as cheap as $3 a month. And there's a lot of cool things that you can get. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.